a rally speech better designed for a shrink's couch than a public setting, Donald Trump aired grievance after grievance after grievance and made an obvious grab for the spotlight that for much of the day yesterday was owned by his disgraced EPA administrator, Scott Pruitt. Pruitt resigning amid a sea of ethical scandals and withering criticism from across the ideological spectrum. Trump, who one close friend and outside advisor once described as the Sun King because he wants all of the media's attention for himself, lashed out at the press, at John McCain, at George H.W. Bush, the FBI, Democrats, and the Me Too movement.
Democrats want anarchy. They really do. We call them the Democrat Party. You know why? The Democratic Party sounds too good. Yes, she is a low IQ individual, Maxine Waters. I said it the other day. Honestly, she's somewhere in the mid-60s, I believe that. Let's say I'm debating Pocahontas, right? I'm going to get one of those little kids. And in the middle of the debate, when she proclaims that she's of Indian heritage, because her mother said she has high cheekbones, we will take that little kid and say, but we have to do it gently. Because we're in the Me Too generation, so we have to be very gentle. And we will very gently take that kid, and we will slowly toss it, hoping it doesn't hit her and injure her arm. I will give you $1 million to your favorite charity, paid for by Trump, if you take the test and it shows you're an Indian. How about that FBI agent? How about that guy? You think he likes me? Oh, did we catch them in the act? It's a rigged deal, folks. It's a rigged deal. I used to say it. It's a rigged deal. It's a disgrace. 75% of those people are downright dishonest. Downright dishonest. They're fake. They're fake.
Where's Melania? But Trump saved a warm fuzzy for, you guessed it, Vladimir Putin.
They're going, will President Trump be prepared? You know, President Putin is KGB and this and that. You know what? Putin's fine. He's fine. We're all fine. We're people. Will I be prepared? Totally prepared. I've been preparing for this stuff my whole life. They don't say that. They don't say that.
We are all people. You get that? Trump's warm words for his authoritarian counterpart come as White House aides confirm that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin will meet one-on-one with no one other than translators in the room. New York Times writing, quote, there's no telling what Mr. Trump, a president who abhors long briefing papers and often disregards or defies the advice of his advisors, will choose to say while he is alone with Mr. Putin, a prospect that puts some of his aides and experienced diplomats inside and outside the government on edge. Here to help us understand the ties that seem to bind Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, some of our favorite reporters and friends. Peter Nicholas, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Kimberly Atkins, chief Washington reporter for the Boston Herald. Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI assistant director for counterintelligence. And with us at the table, Jonathan Lemire, Associated Press White House reporter, and Evan McMullin, former CIA operative and former candidate for president as an independent. The rally, even his friends described that version of Donald Trump as slightly pathetic, as someone who is so desperate for attention, so desperate for the cheers and hoots and hollers from the crowd, that he puts on a show that really isn't even remotely close to anything presidential.
Yeah, there's a show on Comedy Central where a guy basically makes an entire show out of impersonating the president, and it almost felt like Donald Trump was doing that impersonation of himself rather than being him. He was so over the top. And I've covered between the campaign and since taking office dozens upon dozens, 100 of these rallies, and I'm surprised at my ability to still be surprised. But I was by the Me Too movement there with Elizabeth Warren, that he would to try to make a joke about something that has obviously been a groundswell in the last year or so for a lot of people. It has meant a lot of people. Women have come forward with their stories. But let's also recall that this is a president who himself has been accused of sexual assault repeatedly, who we heard on the Access Hollywood tape brag about doing so, who just yesterday, the day of this rally, he made the hire official of Bill Shine, who now is new communications director, who previously was at Fox News, being drummed out for covering up these exact kind of escapades of sexual harassment. And last night, that was the most perhaps stunning moment, but there were several.
Well, you know what, just stay with it, because I saw some polling today that even among women, Republican women, his approval number is 20 points lower than his approval rating among Republican men. I think he has 54% approval either among men or among Republican men, and he has about a 34% approval among women. So that plays right into this opportunity to steal women from the independent and Republican categories in the midterms. That has to make people like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell very nervous to see that.
Of course, women, suburban women in particular. That's not a hand the Republican Party wants to be dealt going into this fall's midterms. And you would think that Donald Trump, though he had success to a degree in 2016 with Republican women, that he would not want to lose any of. He can't afford to hemorrhage any of that support going into his reelection bid. So that was the most dramatic moment. But also, let's recall, we are just days after a newspaper was shot up in Annapolis, Maryland, and a number of people died. And we took Donald Trump 24 hours to sort of express his sympathies to personally express his sympathies for the victims and to defend the sort of rights of the free press. And here we are just days later, he's back on his usual fake news attacks.
Kimberly Atkins, our viewers can't see you, but I can see you nodding. Let me just let you weigh in on any and all of that.
No, I think that Jonathan is spot on. Look, we have the president who also is at a place. He's about to appoint his second Supreme Court justice in his first term. That's something that few presidents get to do. He's about to go to NATO and represent the United States there. There are a lot of things for him to be talking about, but you can see he is at his most comfortable place at these rallies, doing what he thinks that crowd wants, which is attacks on Elizabeth Warren, which includes not only a joke about the Me Too movement, but also his favorite racial slur to hurl at her, and just a lot of ginning up the crowd. It seems that when he is in these rooms with his core supporters, they bring out the worst in each other. He resorts to that sort of talk, and they shout, lock her up. But that's what he likes to do. That's what he's going to focus on, and we're going to see a whole lot more than that leading up to the midterms and certainly into 2020.
Peter, let me quickly just pass along something I heard from a Trump ally this morning. He said, for a president so publicly and privately obsessed with the size of things, crowds, hands, whatnot, he never misses an opportunity to showcase his smallness.
Well, you have to look at these rallies in some sense as a dramatic acting out of his tweets, where the president is just pretty much
performance art.
Yeah, it is a form of performance art. I mean, he's on stage.
I've never heard that before. That's great.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is kind of a dramatic expression of tweets where he's unchained. These are spontaneous, and they keep the audience riveted. They keep the news media riveted. I mean, he may make news at any minute, and he often does. And I think that is really a measure for him, a criteria. To Jonathan's point, I wonder how much calculation is going into when he's at these rallies, how much calculating he's doing about which constituency he's winning or losing, as opposed to, is the audience engaged? Are they entertained? I mean, is the media enthralled? So I think those are the criteria he considers.
Frank Figliuzzi, lest we not get lost in the lunacy and the smallness of it all, he did single out Vladimir Putin for praise, and this is a president heading into a consequential summit next week, a president who does not get briefed. People don't tell him the Russia intelligence developments. We know that he doesn't like to hear that. We've also learned that he doesn't read the PDB, so I think it's fair to assume that he doesn't listen to a briefing on Russia and he doesn't read a briefing on Russia unless he's reading Braille. He's not hearing anything about Russia. What do you make of the fact that for all that lunacy, he singled out Vladimir Putin for praise, said we're all people?
So of all the things that he said last night that were disturbing and that we could focus on, that phrase, that comment about Putin being KGB, but he's one of us, he's okay, we're all people, that is what I choose to focus on because that's the most disturbing. And I have to tell you, Nicole, an attempt to normalize a stone-cold killer like Vladimir Putin, who orders the murders and poisonings of those who he disagrees with, is extremely troubling. And this president is about to sit across a table from this man alone and discuss national security matters. And so what troubles me the most here is that we're watching our president become unhinged, imploding in full view of the world, and now negotiating with killers negotiating with heads of state who he perhaps should not be sitting down and negotiating with. And that leads me to the conclusion, Nicole, that perhaps the greatest threat facing our national security today is an insider threat. It's the president himself who doesn't get it, doesn't understand what he's up against.
You agree with that, Evan?
I do agree with that, and I might even go further than Frank has gone, although I think everything that Frank said was correct. But look, the president is a national security threat. I and Frank, we're not the first ones to observe this. This person, this man, this president has a dangerous relationship with one of our primary foreign adversaries, an adversary that is attacking our country, specifically attacking our ability to choose to select our own leaders. The president, when he does these things, and I would say the whole theme last night is not just a president who's coming unhinged. This is a president who's trying to desensitize us and normalize us to attacks on our democracy, to attacks on the institutions that protect our liberty, whether it's the press, whether it's the FBI. He does these things not just because he's going crazy. He does these things because he wants to walk his people and the country down this road away from liberal democracy or away from open, free society. That's what he's doing. And so even when he attacks the Me Too movement, that's part of it. We might say normal political leaders might say, well, don't go anywhere near that because that's dangerous to you. No, that's not Donald Trump's approach. Donald Trump's approach is to attack it head on, trivialize it, and make it a non-issue. He's done that with Russia. He's done that with the Me Too movement. He's done that with the FBI. And he'll do that more and more again. We think he's being unhinged. We think it sounds crazy. But there's a reason he's doing it, and as you could hear from the applause in that room, it's somewhat effective.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.